to talk a little bit about diverse working styles and how you can leverage Cloverleaf in a habitual way to help teams really thrive. The whole purpose of Cloverleaf, right, is that every team's a thriving team. We want to unleash people to do their best work, but we do that by understanding people's differences. And managers and individual contributors can really foster much better engagement and collaboration by taking the time to leverage different Cloverleaf features in a way that is impactful. So in terms of it, you developing your own self-awareness, it is really key that you have a best practice of leveraging your own Cloverleaf dashboard. Now, whether that is your actual assessment, so whether I'm going to go and view my profile, whether that's you really familiarizing yourself with your own results, or even leveraging this specific aspect of your profile where you can kind of get topic specific coaching tips. How often are you using this? How often, when you're preparing for a conversation, are you using your own results to be able to gauge that self-awareness? So you want to make sure you're familiarizing yourself with some of your results and also some of the really good in-application explanations of some of your results as well, without having to kind of dig into your report. But one of the most valuable things in Cloverleaf is leveraging what's right here in front of you. So you want to ask yourself, how often am I kind of looking at my calendar insights? And I can actually view a dashboard of the person that I'm meeting with. So this is telling me I have a meeting with Jason right now because we're together, right? And this is giving me some insight in being able to leverage some of this information to customize and prepare for my own communications, right? And so we want to ask ourselves, how often am I leveraging that dashboard? How often am I signing into it? If I'm not, it's a missed opportunity, right, for that self-awareness and that other awareness, right? So when we talk about other awareness, you want to make sure that you're also leveraging your team's Cloverleaf profiles and not just the team dashboards, right? This is my individual dashboard. But even if I were to go on to my team dashboard, right? So if I were to go onto a team dashboard, how often am I actually leveraging that other awareness by being able to not only see my results, but also see individual results? How often am I using the thinking styles comparison where I can really understand the differences in communication style? If you look at some of the thinking style comparison piece here, it gives you the differences. How does Peggy relate in terms of communication, her work style? What's her source of conflict? What's her reaction to conflict, right? So oftentimes we are very transactional with our day. We're doing meeting to meeting to meeting to conversation to conversation. We're transacting in those conversations. But one of the key things you really want to do to leverage the appreciation for diverse working styles is to use your calendar to include Cloverleaf preparation time. That is one of the biggest best practices that I suggest to people, no matter what role they have. If you have a meeting at 12 o'clock, block off 11:45. If you know you've got to have a decision-making meeting with 3 people, block off 11:45 to 12 o'clock and hop on this profile, hop on your team profile. If you need to build a team, let's say that you are meeting with 3 people from different functions, that you don't have an intact team on Cloverleaf. You want to hop on Dashboard Builder before that meeting, and you want to say, hey, I want to really get curious about the 3 people that I'm meeting with. So if I have a meeting with Dan, Allison, and Heidi, and I want to understand a little bit about how we might be different together, how we might complement each other's strengths. If I don't have a team built or I don't have the ability to build a team, I can do this really quickly and prepare a little better for my conversation. So for example, all of us are extroverts, right? So when I know I'm going into a meeting with all extroverts, including myself, I ask questions. This helps me stop talking, right? This helps me if I might see someone talking a really long time, I might say, hey, Heidi, what do you think about that, right? So I can be strategic in planning for my conversations, and I can use my calendar to protect my time to help me be intentional. Now you might say, I don't have time for that. My calendar's so back to back. Here's the thing. There's an impact on you not incorporating intentional communication planning into some of your communications. Even if you think you know everything about there is for those people that are coming to that conversation. But you can literally spend 5 minutes doing this preparation before a conversation or a meeting. And all of a sudden, you've got 3 new ideas. You've got an intentional way that you're going to start the conversation. You have some insight into it, right? And so I know it's not a luxury that we all can use all the time, but if we want to honor those diverse work styles, we want to use our calendar to include preparation time. So I'd like to hear from a few people in the chat. What are some of the best practices you use, right, to increase your appreciation for different working styles? What are some of the things you do using Cloverleaf when you know you have to have a difficult conversation, or you have to have a meeting with 2 people that you're not super familiar with? How do you use Cloverleaf? What are some things you do? We want to know some of your best practices to honor and understand how to best work with other people. So pop in the chat. Let us know, what are some things you've used successfully in the past to help you. So Allison asked a good question. Do Cloverleaf users have to give you permission to see their profiles? So it depends on their profile settings and if they're set up as a team or not. So if I am working with a team that I am on, by default, I'm able to see those individual profiles. There are privacy settings if I'm not on a team with people that may prevent them from using seeing that information. But if I'm not on a team with someone, then I'll be able to see they'll be able to see my profile and vice versa. Elizabeth shared, I leverage the dashboard builder or insight search capability to gain insights to drive conversation. That's awesome. I want to just bring the attention to that feature. I'm going to hop on to my dashboard. So the insight search feature, when you are preparing for a conversation, is awesome. Like, how can I manage conflict, right, with Jason, right? And remember, when you tag people, nobody knows, right? So I can ask that quick question. If I have to go into a conversation, I might go and use that feature. Taylor shared, I look at their communication styles and strengths and mold my questions around their strengths to make sure they feel important. Taylor, that's an awesome example there. And when you look at people's strengths, right, you can see individual strengths. So if I click on Heidi, right, I can see her individual strengths. If I go to Heidi's profile and I want to learn more about her communication style, I can click right there, right? And I can customize that. Anita shared, I love how you can integrate your calendar, which keeps me aware of what's ahead. Terry shared, I gain a baseline of how individuals are best engaged. Awesome. Try to build a relationship by getting to know their working styles. Blake shared, I'm currently using Cloverleaf to build a team alignment exercise for a client where small groups are able to see their collective strengths and potential gaps via Enneagram and DISC, and then working together to realign on preferred working style. Awesome. You might get some insights, Blake, from our examples that we use today. So a lot of people doing some really great things. Again, the calendar integration is super helpful. But again, if you are just trying to really, again, tailor your communication to honor someone's different working style, look, you have work style here, right, as a topic, right? So that's something you can click on as well. So again, these are just high level best practices that we're sharing with you, and different ways to be able to customize your communication. Marthana, that's a really great call out. Marthana is new to the organization and using Cloverleaf as one tool to get to know my team members. Excellent. Imagine being brand new to an organization. You've got all these spaces to meet, but hey, I can pop on to Cloverleaf, right? And I can work and understand a little bit more about the people that I might be interacting with, right? I can sort of gain more insight. I'm gonna go back to the larger team dashboard. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all the ways you're using Cloverleaf. That's great. Okay, so we're going to start out using some assessment specific examples. So if you want to follow along in Cloverleaf, by the way, that's something I recommend. It also can help you sort of, if you're a visual person, you want to be able to see the Enneagram triads of your own team or a team that you're working with. I invite you to do that as well. So we're going to talk about how to leverage Enneagram triads during decision making to get buy-in. When you have people with different approaches, different ways that they think about how to make decisions. So I'm just going to hop on to Enneagram down here. I want to show you what I'm referring to, right? So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the gut triad, the head triad, and the heart triad. But you'll notice that you can see when you click on this, you can see who's in each triad. And I'll explain what the triad of 3 types has in common and how you might want to prepare for decision making when you're working with a diverse group. Now, this means you might have to, let's say you're the presenter trying to get buy-in, or you are honoring all the different working styles and thinking styles in your team. You might have to prepare a multifaceted way of speaking and presenting to capture all the styles. So I was a high school teacher for 10 years. And so I would often have to use different ways of teaching and learning in the classroom because I had different types of learners in front of me. So in the same way, when you go into a meeting and you have different people who are focusing on a different decision-making lens, I'm going to walk you through how you can leverage this diversity to be able to focus. So we're going to talk about a little bit first about the head triad, right? So this is about gaining specific buy-in from each triad. So the head triad is made out of types 5, 6, and 7. So every single triad is driven by something different, right? And so people in the head triad are often driven by a need to feel like all their ducks are in a row. They want a little bit more control over their environment in terms of their own understanding before they say, yeah, I'm all for this decision. They put a higher reliance on thinking and also not just thinking of information, but then they take that information and they add some strategy to it, right? And so people in the head triad are really concerned with understanding before they give their yes, okay? And they put a lot of emphasis on their level of understanding based upon, and then they use that level of understanding to determine whether or not they're going to give their buy-in. So when you are trying to get buy-in from people in the head triad, you want to do 3 key things. Okay, so first, you want to make sure that as you explain something, you're being detailed. You want to use logic. You want to make sure you have a plan. So people that are in the head triad, they love to see a visual of like a 4-step plan, right? They also want to understand the why. So don't just put together something and say, oh, this is just a great idea. You have to tell them why, right? Give them the structured roadmap. I can't stress enough when a person in the head triad can see step by step of how something might go and understand the motivation behind all of those steps, you'll get to buy in faster. Now, people in the head triad, I'm in the head triad, we're a little risk averse. So you want to anticipate that someone in the head triad is going to be concerned with risk. Okay. So you want to offer some basically backup plans, like if this, then that, right? So we know this could possibly happen. Here's how we would handle that. This is one of the obstacles we might face. Here's how we would overcome that, right? So offer what the challenges might be before they get a chance to say, well, what about, right? Anticipate it, get ahead of it, and then offer some of the solutions that you might use to combat some challenges or obstacles. You also want to remember that people in the head triad, they're thinkers, right? They like to think, they like to analyze, they like to take analysis and then create strategy. So you want to invite them to input, allow space for questioning, say, hey, what are some of the things that you see, right? This also helps people in the head triad feel a little bit more safe and they feel a little bit more heard. And that will lower their sort of nervousness about kind of going forward, and it will help resolve their doubts. Right. So Again, this is when I'm on a team, I've got people that I need a yes from, and they are in the head triad, right? So they're a 5, 6, or a 7, and they share that desire for safety, and they share that desire for certainty. If you have any questions as I go through any of the sections, I want you to pop them right in the chat and I will address them as they come up. We're going to continue moving through this, but if you have a question about a specific triad, pop it in the chat and we'll continue to move forward. Okay, so now most teams usually have representation from more than one triad, unless it's a really small team. Now, even if you only have one person in a certain triad, you still have, and you need their buy-in, you still have to honor, again, that diverse approach to decision-making. So now we're going to talk about the heart triad. These are 2s, 3s, and 4s. Now, the heart triad really has a strong need to not just feel recognized, right? But they want to feel a connection to the group that they're in. And they also want to feel that their concerns, especially about other people, have been heard. So people in the head triad, when they think about a decision, they think about how is it going to impact these people because I have a relationship with them, or these people have a relationship with the organization, right? And so they focus on that and they're thinking about that, right? And so the approach, again, 3 things you want to do when you're trying to get buy-in, right? The approach is to appeal to their sense of emotion and their need to connect. So you want to make sure that you're taking information and creating a personal narrative, right? And so they are going to think about the decision based upon the benefit to other people and how it's going to improve the quality of work or life for those people. You want to make sure that you bring a sense of empathy to how you're speaking and kind of match their concern for people, right? Even if that's not top of mind. You also want to acknowledge what they actually put forth. So people in the heart triad, they do have a need to feel, again, seen, heard, noticed, appreciated for their contributions. So you want to get some of their input, right? Acknowledge what strength they might bring to a possible situation, how their participation could make a difference, right? Because as soon as you include them, they're going to feel that sense of ownership. They'll be more inclined to buy in. And you also want to connect whatever the decision is to their specific values. So you might not know those values. So maybe you do need to go on to Cloverleaf to delve a little bit more into their profile or use the insight search to understand what do they value most when making a decision, right? That's a question you could ask. But you do want to frame the decision in a way that connects with their values and whatever they feel is driving them, right? They want to feel like they're contributing to something meaningful. The focus when you're working with people in the heart triad to get buy-in is to help them understand how they can make a difference with what you're doing, because they have that drive and that need to support. So Anita, thanks for that great question. I have been working with Enneagram for a very long time, and so I understand the triads, but you can also, Anita's question is I would like to know how you come up as quickly as you did of how to create these one-word approaches. Time using the platform is always a concern. So one of the things that I would suggest if you want to come up with some of this quickly is in the app, specifically with Enneagram, you can learn a little bit about the strengths of what this triad brings, right? So when making decisions, it tells you what's important to them. It tells you what some of their blind spots might be and how you can actually work with people in the heart triad to help them move along. And then it also will tell you, hey, if you're not a 2, 3, or 4, here's what you need to do, right? So use the information that's in the application. It does give you a lot of guidance. I basically just tried to summarize some of it in this application. But great question, Anita, and thank you for asking it. So we're going to move now to the gut triad, right? And so the gut triad, they have a connection. The word gut, it's very literal here. They have a connection to their gut instinct, right? They do also really want to protect their own time and autonomy. They do want to feel empowered. They want to feel also that what is happening is just, that it's the right decision. And they do like to own some of that process as well. So when you're trying to get the gut triad, sometimes can be the toughest triad to get buy-in from, because the gut triad often wants, again, to own. They want that autonomy, right? They want that ability to make decisions on their own. And you're talking about a group decision. So you do want to offer what we call control and agency. And what does that mean? That means give people in this triad the opportunity to own part of this. Present the decision in a way that allows them to feel like they will have some ownership and accountability around how they participate in whatever the decision is, right? So give them that, paint that picture of having some agency, some control over what's happening. Because that justice aspect is very important to people in the gut triad, you want to make sure that whatever the decision or the idea that you're proposing has an element of fairness there. And so this particular group of people will catch on to, hey, this sounds like it might not be the right decision, or it might not serve the most amount of people. So you want to highlight how the decision aligns with fairness. How does it align with our values as a team or an organization? Or if you have specific organizational values that are very prevalent in the way that people, there's the speaking and the programming is in your organization, you want to make sure you bring those values as well. So anytime you could share how this decision will reflect our values, that will also connect with people in the gut triad. And you also want to make sure that you, as the speaker and the presenter, that you demonstrate confidence, right? So people in the gut triad will very quickly sense if you are not confident, right? And they might poke some holes. So make sure you're clear, be very direct, summon your confidence. If you have to practice, if you know you're going in front of a giant group of gut triad folks, practice. I will tell you, most of the senior teams that I work with on Cloverleaf, if I'm doing a team session, as I see more and more seniority, I will see a lot more people in the gut triad, right? So if you have to pitch something to, a group of senior leaders, you'll find that there is a lot of gut triad members and some of those senior leaders. So make sure you've practiced whatever you're going to say. And then also they appreciate, people in the gut triad appreciate when you just say it like it is, right? Don't dance around something, and show strength and your ability to make a decision. So again, if you look at this, even if you have a small group and you have one or two people in each triad, you might have to work a little harder. This is what we call that intentional communication. You might have to work a little harder in your preparation to cover all these bases. Again, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Jason has just shared some additional resources for Enneagram triads. So if you want to go deeper to understand the triads and to help with what Anita asked, you can do that as well. Remember, we have the most amazing help center ever in the world, right? So let me just go, I'll go right to, could you actually put the help center link in the chat, Jason? So our help center is incredible. It's basically almost like a mini LMS. There's videos in there. There's webinars in there. I call it the More Than Help Center, right? You can search absolutely anything here. Like, hey, I want to learn more about Enneagram triads because I want to prepare for a conversation about that, right? And so, bam, all these different resources will come up, right? If you just stay right on the main help center page, right? And you will see all the different topics, right? If you want to go deeper in assessment, you'll see all of that as well, right? So just remember, always have that bookmarked if you want to go deeper in some of these things. And all our previous webinars, by the way, are all on here. They all have videos in them. You'll get an idea of, you can go through an assessment review webinar of each assessment if you want to go deeper. Again, there's a lot of great information here. Okay, so if you have any questions, hey, Kayleen, welcome. Kayleen said the help center is the best. Yeah, I think it's the best too. I didn't even make it, but it's the best. So shout out to our colleagues, Taylor and Jason, who are the help center, amazing humans. All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about project planning. Now, remember, even if you're not the leader of the team, this is something you can suggest to a leader of a team. Like, hey, before we dive into this project, can we sort of make sure that we're leveraging everyone's best strengths? Now, if you're in the resource, I want to let you know, we have given you a very, very, very outlined approach, right, to leading this conversation. So there is an entire agenda for how to have a project kickoff meeting using VIA or Clifton strengths. So using one of the strengths assessments and using what I'm about to walk you through at a high level. So the detail of all of this is in this resource, but I'm going to just be talking about it at a high level right now. So you can use Clifton strengths or VIA strengths. So I'm going to hop on here. So if you are using Clifton strengths and you can obviously see the team strengths list. You can see the active strengths. You can see the inactive strengths, right? You can also use strength scope if you have access to strength scope as well, right? So any of the strengths assessments, this will work with. Okay, so you're going to make sure that everyone has taken at least one of these strengths assessments and ensure that they have everything set up on Cloverleaf. You're also going to make sure that you kind of have them familiarize themselves with their own strengths. So what does that mean? If I obviously can see team strengths here, and just so everybody understands what this looks like, when you see a 15 in front of strategic, what that means is that these 15 people have strategic as one of their top 5 strengths. That's what that means. When you hover over this number, that's what that means. It is the same for VIA strengths as well. Same thing, right? So honesty, 25 people have honesty as one of their top 5 strengths, and then they're color coded based upon this. So you do want to make sure that individuals, however, go through their own strengths, right? So you want to make sure that the team understands their own strengths that might be on their Cloverleaf dashboard, right? So have they gone through their own strengths, right? They can click on this and understand a little bit more about their own strengths, right? So you want to make sure they can do that. The same thing with VIA as well. Make sure the team is familiar and they have looked at their strengths, right? And so then what you want to do is, now this is before a project or an initiative, or maybe there's something cyclical that your team does, every year that takes a lot of effort, right? You want to schedule a kickoff meeting, right? And so in this kickoff meeting, now in the resource, the whole agenda for this kickoff meeting is there. Let people know what it is, right? The primary objective is to basically align the project goals, right? And determine how each person on the team, each of their strengths can actually contribute to the project being a win, right? Make sure you prepare all of your team members by sending out a message prior to this meeting, asking them to review their top strengths on Cloverleaf and consider how can they contribute to the project using 1 or 2 of their strengths. So what does that mean? So I might come to the meeting and say, one of my strengths is woo, right? In Clifton strengths. We love being able to meet new people, teams, ideas. We get satisfaction from connecting with new people. We also like to start new things, right? And so we might be great at the beginning of this project because it requires that we interview some people to get feedback about something. So maybe because I have that woo strength, hey, if one of our steps to this project is interviewing stakeholders, I want to be one of those people because I want to create that, right? So I'm going to share what that strength is and what aspect of the project I might be best suited for, right? So you're asking them, hey, go look at your strengths, come and share in the meeting what 1 or 2 of those strengths you think would make a difference here. So this is sort of a sample meeting outline. Again, this entire meeting outline is all in your work, in your resource here. So everything is here. I'm going to speak to it at a very high level. When you are in this meeting, you might want to bring up the team dashboard and highlight the strengths assessment that you are speaking from. So if you've asked people to go to their VIA strengths, you might want to bring that up. You might want to explain to people what this number means, explain to people the different topics are right here. The different strength areas are right here. So it's really, you have a lot of content that's already in here. Jason, you're fine. Oh, the woo strength is short for winning others over. I didn't actually know that. It says Jason is claiming I'm good at this. He's not objective in that. So, but thank you, Jason. Okay, so the sample meeting. You're going to just start the meeting by explaining, hey, why are we doing this? We want this project to be amazing, and we want to leverage every single person on this team, and emphasize how important that is. Highlight how important it is not only to understand my own strengths, but how we can utilize everybody's strengths. That's the thing. This activity is great for people, like reminding themselves, oh yeah, this person's really great at that. There's no possible way you could be thinking of everybody's strengths on your team all day long, right? So then you're going to invite people to share their individual contributions. So go around and then make sure every person shares one or two of their top strengths as reflected in one of those assessments, and ask them to briefly explain what are the strengths that they have that they're going to apply to this specific project. How do they see these strengths making a difference? So for example, you could say, how can those your two top strengths help us overcome an obstacle that this project might face? Or how does this strength align with what this project's goals are, right? So you want to make sure that you are allowing people to express that very specifically. Now, as people speak, you also want to encourage everybody else to be listening. Encourage other team members to really pick up on, hey, if you hear a strength and you see how something can be leveraged, let us know, right? So you're encouraging not only speaking, but listening. Then you kind of have a group discussion, maybe facilitate about how the various strengths that we've shared can be combined. Maybe this person can work with that person. What are the opportunities to collaborate? Like, where can my strengths and Jason's strengths together make a difference? So for example, let's say someone has strategic as one of their strengths, and then another team member has execution. Those things pair well together. So maybe I'm going to put those two people working together. And also, you do want to ask the question to the team, what are some gaps? So on every team, you'll see inactive strengths. Now, the larger the team, the fewer the inactive strengths, right? And so you do want to, make sure that you have a conversation about, hey, this strength is inactive. How does that impact us? How could that impact this project, right? So you're being very, very clear about the role of these strengths and how they can make a difference. Then you're doing action planning based on everything you talked about. Make sure that and maybe you need time, right? Maybe you need time to assign roles and tasks, but basically set forth some actions or some decisions that you think you can make given what people have shared. For example, people that have shared they had strengths around communication, they may, like I shared around woo, they may want to take on things around stakeholder engagement, right? And so if we know that certain people shared, hey, you know what, I'm really good at analysis, maybe they're focusing on that part of the project. And clarify the responsibilities and your expectations so that every team member knows how their strengths are going to make a difference in this specific project. And then you could also summarize, you could say, hey, I'm going to have a follow-up. We're going to discuss maybe a few more things. I might want to have some one-on-ones with you. Or let's say you're an individual contributor and you didn't get to share, enough, or you feel like you missed a strength. Maybe you want to follow up with your leader. But again, you're going so far beyond the assessment to use the different strengths to generate conversation that makes a difference. And again, this is that kind of intentional communication. This is why Cloverleaf is not a one and done assessment platform. You have this visual here. You have these conversation starters here, right? And now we've given you a structure to kind of use these strengths assessments to have these conversations. I'd like to invite any questions in the chat, or if you've had other ways you've reused any of the strength assessments to appreciate all the diversity on a team or on your team, please feel free to share anything in the chat or ask anything in the chat, specifically as it relates to honoring diverse strengths. Maybe you've use this in a different way and we want to hear about it. So feel free to pop in the chat. Take a minute if you want to share something, maybe some way you use this or you've seen it used, or maybe a best practice that you've used with some of the diverse strengths on your team. While you're thinking about that, I will share that I've facilitated something before where it wasn't related to a project, where I was asking people to identify a strength that was really active right now that they were using. And then I also asked them to mention a strength that they weren't using enough. And so what this did was it gave other members of the team to really, and this wasn't around a specific project, it was just in general around my role. What's a strength I really lean into that I really use? And then I would ask each person to share, like, what's a strength that I know I have, but I'm not using right now? And then what that would do is it would spark other team members to be like, oh, I can help you leverage that strength, right? And so again, that's just another way that I've seen this done. I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now, so I'm going to keep moving, but if you want to share anything. Oh, good question. Yes. Sharon said, when a group has a lot of inactive strengths, what's a way that you keep those missing strengths in mind? That's a really awesome question. So I'm going to bring up a smaller team. When you have a bigger team, you don't often see that. So I'm going to bring on up the Cloverleaf customer success team. Okay. So when you have smaller teams, again, you will see this more. So what I'll often do, I'm going to use Via instead. It's a little use. Okay, I guess Via is not on here. Okay, I'm going to use Clifton Strengths. So what I'll often do is have a conversation about the largest category missing, right? So the largest category missing is in execution, right? And so you want to start with the biggest gap, right? And so what I'll look to is maybe this strength. So the way these results come out is I get my top 5 strengths. Maybe one of these strengths was like number 6 or 7, and it just doesn't show up, right, as one of those top 5. So we'll look at what best practices we could implement to get the essence of this strength, or how can we leverage Melanie, because she's really strong in achieving and responsibility. How can Melanie sort of lead the charge on presencing these strengths? Maybe we put something that she's accountable for because she's holding a lot of the strengths and executing right here, right? So we'll look at what I call strength recipes, right? So we might have, it says that we don't have self-assurance right here. It's inactive, right? But how can we kind of look to some of the people that have the other strengths in the influencing area, right? How do we kind of make a strength recipe to make up for that missing self-assurance? So again, you want to ask, what are those best practices? And is it relevant to our team that we're missing this strength? Sometimes, given what the team is accountable for, it's not impacting us that much. So you want to be asking people how it's impacting you to have some of these strengths missing. So it's really all about creative questioning, creative, powerful questioning. Taylor shared, I used to create games or interactive activities during trainings or group outings to get everyone involved. Awesome, right? So great. It's like it could be an activity of like, hey, pick one of the, look at our inactive strengths. What do you think is the one that's impacting us the most? It's just really about developing that coach approach and creating ways for people to openly discuss. Awesome questions. Love it. Okay, some best practices specifically for managers. If you want to foster collaboration and honor diverse working styles, make sure that you have a handle on people's individual profiles, right? So you want to make sure that if you're a manager and you're struggling, that you are going to each individual person's profile, right? You are spending time before one-on-ones, before performance conversations. You're actually going to someone's profile and having that intentional communication preparation. You're looking at their specific topical coaching tips. So you want to get really used to, again, sitting on your team members' profiles to help you really customize how you lead them. The other thing you want to do is adapt your leadership style, right? So you want to make sure you're looking at your coaching tips, right? How do you have to adapt your leadership style based on your specific needs? So what does that mean? That means I might need to go to my leadership tips, right? I might need to go to my tips on my leadership segment here and say, how do I have to leverage the strength? How do I have to tailor this strength based upon the audience, based upon the team that I am specifically dealing with, right? So make sure that you're putting enough reflection time. If you are a person that needs to build time on your calendar because you're not going to remember to do these things, block off the first 10 minutes of your Monday, or your Tuesday or your Friday afternoon to just be present to some of your coaching tips so that you can maybe even reflect back or forward. What do I want to change based upon what I'm reflecting back on, and what do I want to do differently going forward? You also want to really lean into Cloverleaf for conflict mediation. We always get the topic of, hey, we need more help with conflict. So a couple of things, you want to use your Cloverleaf team thinking styles, right? So you want to make sure that you are, let me see, I clicked too many things here. You want to make sure that you're using this feature. I'll tell you a strategy that I used as a leader when I was managing a team and we were all on Cloverleaf. If someone came to me with a conflict, I would say, stop right there. Before I hear anything, I would say, sorry, I don't know what we're going on with that. I would say, listen, I want you to go to your team thinking styles, and I want you to sit and read each of the different things of the way you are different with Peggy or Mindy. I want you to go do that and then come back to me and answer the question, what do you think the source of the conflict is? So I used to avoid getting into like details and drama with people, and I would assign them to go look at the thinking styles here, or I would bring it up on a call. Hey, you know what? Let's just bring up your Cloverleaf profile and their Cloverleaf profile together. I would bring it up and have a conversation with them. So you can use this feature for yourself when you're navigating conflict, but I highly recommend it. Don't get sucked into a one-on-one that completely gets overtaken by someone complaining about someone else. Like, hey, you know what? Let's look at what might be the source of this. Let's pull up your Cloverleaf profile and their Cloverleaf profile. Let's look at how you're different. And then that's how you have a more intentional, solution-focused conversation with people. So as a leader, don't get stuck in details and drama. Make sure that you are using Cloverleaf in those moments. Now, if you're an individual contributor, you want to be focusing on using Cloverleaf for your own personal growth. You want to make sure that you have a habit around your coaching tips and not just with your emails. If you're an individual contributor, you're looking to develop your career, you're looking to increase self and other awareness, you want to make sure that not only are you checking your coaching tips, but you are also doing your Cloverleaf reflections. I cannot stress the importance of these reflections enough. And again, you want to make sure you pick your coaching focus, which gives you a sort of a topic that you want to focus on. You want to make sure that you're doing your Cloverleaf reflections and that you're also reflecting on some of your other team members as well. Also, every single person should be selecting their coaching focus. If you haven't done that yet, you'll find that here. You can select your coaching focus based on your role, and that will allow you to get some tips that are focused in that area. And when they are, it will tell you when those tips are related to that coaching focus. So again, do your reflections, challenge yourself to do them 2 to 3 times a week. Proactively check your Cloverleaf insights before you get on a meeting, before you go to a meeting with someone that maybe you don't work as often. Make sure you're reviewing your profiles. Make sure you're asking those questions. How can I communicate effectively with so-and-so? Use your insight search. And then also ask for feedback, right? Use Cloverleaf to then even say, hey, I read this on my Cloverleaf. How do you think I show up this way? You have to solicit feedback as an individual contributor who's looking to forward their own career development. Solicit feedback, save the tips that are interesting to you. So how do we save tips? When we're in Cloverleaf, you can easily save a tip. Hey, that's super interesting to me. I want to save it. Save the tips that are interesting to you. Share the tips with your leader. Hey, I want to talk about this tip. Share it, save it. Be super committed to your own development. I can't stress that enough. For an individual contributor, you have to own your own career development path, and Cloverleaf gives you access to do that.